Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 504, an elite meet and greet. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having already sent out all of their Pokemon, with Ash having sent out Pikachu, Apom, the Turtwig, and Staravia, Brock having sent out Krogunk and Sudowoodo while holding his Pokemon egg, and Dawn having sent out Piplup, Pachirisu, and Baniri. Dawn was still in the midst of sending out her last and newest Pokemon, Weasel, so that it could finally meet the rest of the Pokemon that it hadn't met yet. So she did just that, sending Weasel out in a fancy way. However, immediately upon coming out of the Pokeball, all the Pokemon were happy to see it and happily greeted it, but Weasel didn't even smile or return the welcome, just looking away and shaking its head like it was not satisfied with these Pokemon, I guess. Pikachu and Piplup both tried to get Weasel's attention, but Weasel just ignores them, much to their embarrassment, as well as Ash and the gangs, as they didn't know what the fuck was up with Weasel. Piplup tries to talk to Weasel alone, but even then, Weasel wouldn't give it any attention. So Piplup got extremely mad. It tried one last time to greet Weasel, extending its arm for a shake, but Weasel just pushed Piplup away. Piplup was so mad now, it started to fight. Both Pachirisu and Pikachu tried to stop this fight, but to no avail, unfortunately. So Dawn had to step in. And both Pokemon listened to her, because they were her Pokemon, although Weasel was still in a bad mood, which in turn left Piplup in a bad mood. It was pissed as fuck that Weasel didn't seem to respect it anymore, and all the other Pokemon were on edge too, questioning why the fuck Weasel was being so standoffish. And Dawn wondered this as well. However, Ash and Brock remind Dawn that Weasel always trained before she caught it. That was all that it would do. It would just be alone and never with anyone. It would only focus on training. So, basically, that meant that Weasel wasn't used to hanging around other Pokemon, and likely only had battling on the mind. After realizing this, Ash offered a battle to Weasel, and Weasel immediately accepted, actually looking as happy as Ash about this incoming battle. So, Brock took the middle, being the referee, with all the Pokemon who weren't on the battlefield beside him, and Dawn was on one side with Weasel, and Ash was on the other side, deciding to use Turtwig against Weasel, since it was super effective against Weasel after all, being a grass type. So without further ado, Brock declared that it was time for the battle to begin, as Turtwig started off by using Laser Leaf, although Dawn had Weasel dodge and fire a water gun. Weasel actually disobeys this order from Dawn though, and instead launches straight into an Aqua Jet attack, which hit Turtwig pretty hard. Dawn was shocked, as she questioned Weasel as to why the fuck it wasn't listening to her, and Brock and Pikachu were shocked as well. Ash took his chance to have Turtwig shake off the fucking powerful Aqua Jet and race forward with a bite attack. Dawn orders Weasel to dodge, but Weasel once again disobeys Dawn's orders, and instead willfully lets Turtwig bite its arm, leaving it vulnerable to multiple close-range Sonic Boom attacks. Basically, it was utilizing its own strategy. Since Turtwig was busy biting, this left it open to all these different Sonic Boom attacks, which knocked Turtwig flying backwards. And not only that, Turtwig had been defeated by this attack, and was actually really injured from how close range it was, because Sonic Boom wasn't usually meant to be that close range. Brock was shocked by Weasel's power, as he officially declared Dawn and Weasel the winner, and Ash ran over to Turtwig, picking him up and comforting him. Dawn scolded Weasel for going for such a reckless and rude attack. That really hurt Turtwig, fucking dick. Although Weasel did not care about Dawn's disapproval of the attack whatsoever, it was just happy to battle, leaving Ash to comment on the fact that Dawn seemed unable to control Weasel's power. Brock suggested that they go to a Pokemon Center to heal Turtwig, and Ash and Dawn agreed. So Brock looked in his guidebook and found out that there was a Pokemon Center really close by. Before leaving for the center, Dawn apologized for Weasel's behavior and went to go recall it into its Pokeball, but Brock actually told her not to. Dawn was very depressed at not being able to control Weasel though, and thought that she may as well just recall it and maybe fucking release it or some shit, but Brock seriously said otherwise, saying that Dawn should just try and communicate with Weasel and try and bond with it while they made their way back to the Pokemon Center and after that. And Dawn admitted that this was probably a good idea, so she let it stay out of its Pokeball, and Ash and the gang and all their Pokemon walked to the Pokemon Center, while Ash recalled his Staravia, Apom, and Turtwig for now, until he would give it back to Nurse Joy, and Dawn recalled her Piplup, Baniri, and Pachirisu, while Brock recalled his Sudowoodo and Krogunk. We then cut to the Pokemon Center, where Ash immediately gives Nurse Joy Turtwig's Pokeball, and Nurse Joy obviously agrees to tend to Turtwig. However, before Nurse Joy could actually take Turtwig to the emergency room to heal it up, Brock developed hearts in his eyes as he went up to Nurse Joy and held her hands, starting to flirt with her, but his Krogunk forcibly popped out of his Pokeball and hit Brock with a poison jab, dragging Brock away as he moaned in pain. While Krogunk was dragging Brock away, however, he noticed Weasel glaring at it and glared at him back, which pisses Weasel off even more, which in turn pisses Krogunk off even more. So a fight was about to start between the two Pokemon, which Dawn broke up by jumping in between both Pokemon. Dawn did manage to break the fight up as Krogunk walked away, continuing to drag Brock away, relieving Dawn, kind of, as she was still mad at Weasel and started to scold it, while a man nearby in the Pokemon Center, who was reading a book, heard all this. Weasel tried to pretend like it didn't hear anything Dawn said. It was very annoyed by her yelling. Anyways, since Ash and the gang had to wait a while for Turtwig to heal up and all that, they decided to watch a TV in the Pokemon Center to kill the time. And right now, on TV, there was an intense battle being televised between a random-ass trainer and a member of the Sinnoh Elite Four, Lucian. And this battle was even being announced by an announcer. Anyways, Lucian was using his Giraffe Rig against the trainer's Scizor. And after a little while of fighting, Lucian's Giraffe Rig managed to knock his opponent's Scizor against a boulder. Ash and the gang were impressed by Lucian's battle skills, but Weasel was even more impressed. Giraffe Rig then dodged Scizzor's incoming slash attacks, and then jumped up, which caused Scizzor, who was still using slash, to get stuck in a rock. I mean, one of its claws did. Basically, it was continuing to use slash, and since Giraffe had jumped out of the way, its claw got stuck. Now, with Scizzor stuck, Giraffe jumped on top of the rock that Scizzor had got stuck in, and fired off a Psybeam to knock Scizzor out. Amazing action game. Even more by Lucian's skills and the overall battle. Seeing how shocked Lucian's opponent was to lose, and also how shocked the announcer was as well. Just then, though, while Ash and the gang were talking about the battle, Lucian himself came up to them. He was the man who had overheard everything while he was reading earlier, and Lucian humbly admits that he knew that even though he was an Elite Four member, he had a long way to go. Ash and the gang turned their attention to Lucian on the TV, then Lucian in real life, and back and forth between the two, in disbelief that they were actually seeing Lucian in real life, so they had to verify this. Ash and the gang then introduced themselves to Lucian, and before Lucian officially introduced himself, we see that Team Rocket was watching Ash and the gang and Lucian through a Pokemon Center window, spying. As Team Rocket watched on from some bushes, even they had to admit that Lucian was powerful, as they saw the battle on the TV as well. James had to remind Jessie, however, about Lucian's significance in total. She thought that Lucian was just your average strong Pokemon trainer, but James reminded Jessie that the Elite Four were a very powerful group with very powerful Pokemon, and were in each region. There were different Elite Four members for each region. But regardless, this just made Team Rocket immensely hyped up to steal one of Lucian's Pokemon, or all of Lucian's Pokemon for that matter. Anyways, back with Ash and the gang. Since Turtwig still needed time to heal, Ash and the gang decided to sit down with Lucian at a table in the Pokemon Center, having some tea, while Lucian sat in a fancy chair and Ash and the gang sat on a bench together. Lucian proceeded to tell Ash and the gang that he was a member of the Elite Four, and explained what the Elite Four were, as well as the fact that trainers that won a region's Pokemon League conference, so for instance, the Sinnoh League in Sinnoh's case, earned the right to enter the Champion League, where they could battle the Elite Four, and if they beat them, they could battle the current Pokemon League champion to become the champion of the region. After Ash and the gang had learned that all four of the Elite Four had to be beat before challenging the champion, Ash and the gang inquired more as to who exactly the Elite Four and champion were, so Lucian went into detail, specifying that the four Elite Four were himself, a guy named Aaron, a guy named Flint, and a girl named Bertha, who all specialized in different types of Pokemon. And then there was the champion, Cynthia, who didn't specify in any special type. She was all over the map. As for the types that the different Elite Four members specialized in, Lucian specialized in psychic types, Aaron specialized in bug types, Bertha specialized in ground types, and Flint specialized in fire types. Weasel seemed very intrigued by everything that had just been told, especially about Lucian's strong status as an Elite Four member, and Lucian was able to identify that Weasel wanted to battle, which was easily found out by Lucian because of the way Weasel was looking at him. Dawn scolded Weasel again, telling him not to be so rude, and she apologized to Lucian, telling him that she just recently caught Weasel, so he didn't really have much manners yet, and she tried to instill manners on Weasel, saying that someone as strong as the Elite Four probably didn't want to battle her. Lucian was about to say something, but before he could, Ash eagerly jumped up and requested a battle with Lucian as well, telling Lucian that he really wanted to conquer the Sinnoh League, and he wanted to see where his current strength level was at, with a little practice match against Lucian. However, Lucian points out that Weasel asked first for a battle, so he would battle Dawn and Weasel first, revealing that that's what he was about to say before Ash interrupted him, leaving Ash disappointed that he wouldn't be battling right away. Team Rocket, who were still spying on Ash and the gang from that same spot in those bushes outside the Pokemon Center, proceeded to plot, hearing that a battle was about to take place. They were going to meet Ash and the gang and Lucian in the battle place, and they were going to make their move and steal potentially not just Lucian's Pokemon, but also Ash and the gang's Pokemon, while Lucian and Dawn were distracted in the midst of their battle. Team Rocket cheered for all the new Pokemon that they were confident about stealing, as Boba Fett joined in on their cheer too. We then cut back to Ash and the gang, who had went outside, and Dawn had gotten on one part of the Pokemon Center field with her Weasel, and Lucian had got on the other side, while Ash and Brock were watching from the sidelines. Dawn quickly had Weasel prepare itself mentally, as Lucian sent out his Pokemon, Bronzong, to battle. Since Ash had never seen Bronzong before, he checked it with his Pokedex. And we also see that Team Rocket were currently spying from some more bushes, just as we anticipated. Anyways, Brock, who was playing the announcer, officially declared that it was time for the battle between Dawn and Lucian to begin. So, Weasel went for the first move, starting with a Aqua Jet. Well, that's at least what Dawn ordered it to use, but it disobeyed Dawn's Aqua Jet order, and instead used a Water Gun, leaving Ash and Brock surprised, but they were even more surprised when Bronzong protected itself using Iron Defense, making the Water Gun useless. Dawn tried to have Weasel respond to her this time, as she ordered Aqua Jet again, but once again, Weasel ignored Dawn's orders, firing off a Sonic Boom instead, which Bronzong also stopped because it protected itself using Iron Defense. Finally, Bronzong then went on the offensive as it charged towards Weasel with a Gyro Ball, worrying Ash and the gang, especially Dawn, as Dawn ordered Weasel to dodge so it wouldn't get hit, but once again, Weasel disobeyed and wanted to face this Gyro Ball head-on, doing so by attacking with an Aqua Jet. The Aqua Jet and Gyro Ball battle, but the Gyro Ball easily overpowers the Aqua Jet, knocking Weasel down to the ground. Much to Lucian's shock and amazement, though, Weasel gets up like it was nothing. Lucian realizes that he may have to go for a more powerful attack now, as he has his Bronzong rotate and charge up power, preparing to use a Flash Cannon. Once the Flash Cannon did launch, Weasel tried to stop the Flash Cannon in its tracks with a Water Gun. After Ash and the gang had worried for fucking minutes on end while that flash cannon charged up. They knew of its power, and they were extremely fucking scared. So the flash cannon and water gun collided for a decent amount of time, but unfortunately, the water gun was overpowered by a long shot, and Weasel was knocked against a tree, with the flash cannon still hitting it. Right in the eyes, too, so it ended up losing its vision. And to make matters worse, the flash cannon struck his entire body, and once Lucian saw that Weasel had taken enough damage, he had Bronzong stop the flash cannon, and sure enough, Weasel was defeated as it fell down to the ground from the tree. It tried its best to get up, struggling, shocking Dawn as she told it not to push itself too far. And eventually, it couldn't get up and accepted that as it fully passed out, losing the battle against Lucian and his Bronzong. Dawn noticed that Weasel was in very bad condition and checked on it, rubbing it, while Ash and Brock came by and reaffirmed what Dawn thought. Weasel was not in good condition. Lucian then came up to Dawn with his Bronzong and admitted that he got carried away, apologizing for having Bronzong fire a more powerful attack than necessary, and he advised Dawn to have Weasel treated at the Pokémon Center. Lucian and his Bronzong then walk away, while Ash and gang look on, amazed at Lucian's skills and the fact that none of Weasel's attacks even did any damage whatsoever to his Bronzong, truly seeing the power of the Elite Four. We then cut back to Team Rocket in the bushes spying. Even they were impressed by Lucian and Bronzong's skills, in utter awe. And seeing Bronzong's skills obviously made them want to steal Bronzong. And Meowth had a boss fantasy about Giovanni trying to figure out what he should use Bronzong for. So Meowth envisions Giovanni thinking with Bronzong and trying to put it on his head as a hat, or trying to use it as a little cover for a monk so he could play his flute or some shit, or trying to use it as a church bell. But eventually, Meowth realized that Giovanni would just get super frustrated, not figuring out a way to use it. Just if Team Rocket couldn't even figure out a justifiable reason as to why Giovanni would use the Bronzong, then they were sure Giovanni likely wouldn't want it. So they actually decided not to catch Bronzong, and maybe a different Pokemon instead. We then cut back inside the Pokemon Center, where Ash and the gang had carried Weasel to Nurse Joy, and Nurse Joy had taken it into the ER room to treat it, since she had finished treating Turtwig. And eventually, she finished treating Weasel. Yay! And Ash and the gang were in the ER when Weasel woke up. It was physically okay, but they acknowledged that Weasel seemed very depressed after losing for the first time, especially considering that when they first encountered Weasel, it was basically unstoppable. Weasel was so sad that it got up from its treatment bed and went into a corner to pout, making Dawn immensely worried. She really wanted Weasel to feel better and just open up to her and just, be her friend, so that it would actually listen to her in battle. And Brock, Ash, and Pikachu all felt bad for Weasel too. Pikachu especially, as it went over to Weasel and tried to comfort it, but Weasel wouldn't even listen to anything Pikachu said. Nurse Joy came to the conclusion that some food, such as soup, would cheer Weasel up and help it get its confidence back. So she quickly cooked some up and brought it into the ER room to give to Weasel, although before she could actually try, Brock started to flirt with Nurse Joy again, grabbing her hands and thanking her for trying to help out Weasel. Unfortunately for Brock, Krogunk forcibly popped out its Pokeball and knocked Brock out cold by using a poison jab, and dragged Brock away as Brock moaned in pain. However, while Krogunk was dragging Brock away, it passed by Weasel and briefly stared at it again, like it wanted to get back into a fight. However, once it saw that Weasel didn't have any bad attitude or fighting spirit, it was just sad as fuck, it simply just ignored Weasel and continued to drag Brock, leaving Ash, Dawn, and Nurse Joy a bit disturbed by Brock's moaning. Dawn was even more disturbed though, because she blamed herself for all the trouble that Weasel was experiencing, saying that maybe if she was a better trainer, Weasel would listen to her and none of this would have happened. But Ash reassured Dawn that it wasn't her fault and decided to try and cheer Weasel up, thinking it was just down from its loss, like he always used to be. So he managed to get Dawn and Weasel and Pikachu to come with him outside, as well as Brock, once he was done being dragged away by Krogunk. And Ash put his plan into action, going into a swinging motion, which was meant to showcase swimming. He basically was telling Weasel that it should go for a swim in the nearest river to get its hype attitude back. And Ash and Pikachu even offered to go swimming with Weasel, although Weasel was unresponsive, just sitting there depressed still, on the little steps connected to the Pokemon Center, leaving Ash and the gang confused on how they could truly help out Weasel. Just then, Lucian arrived and spotted Weasel, and he had the situation regarding Weasel's whole depression explained to him, and agreed with Ash and the gang that Weasel just seemed depressed as it was dealing with its first instance of defeat that it had ever experienced. And he told Weasel that it could either accept the defeat and return to battling, or just give up for the rest of its goddamn life. Dawn hoped that this harsh approach from Lucian would get to Weasel, but unfortunately for her, it didn't. Weasel just remained depressed and unresponsive. Suddenly, things got worse, and everyone was shocked as a steel cage dropped down on Weasel, and the steel cage was lifted into the air by a rope, and it was revealed that this rope was connected to Team Rocket's Meowth balloon, because Team Rocket had arrived in it and stolen Weasel. That's who they decided to steal. Ash and the gang and Lucian were shocked as Team Rocket revealed their Weasel stealing plans and did their motto, with Wobbuffet and Lime Jr. joining in as usual. Ash and Dawn then told Lucian that Team Rocket was planning to steal Weasel, and they stole Pokemon all the goddamn time, because Lucian had never heard of Team Rocket, so he needed an explanation. Team Rocket were more than happy to confirm that they were planning to give Weasel to their boss. So Ash and Dawn stepped up and got their Pokeballs ready so they could send out some Pokemon to battle Team Rocket, but Lucian stopped them, insisting that they should not interfere with Team Rocket stealing Weasel at all. Ash and Dawn were shocked and questioned why, although Lucian explained that Weasel had an opportunity to make a choice now. It could either not regain its fighting spirit and be taken by Team Rocket, or it could regain its fighting spirit and free itself from Team Rocket. And if Weasel could redevelop his fighting spirit, then all the troubles would basically be over. Weasel eventually got so mad that it snapped out of its depression and started to thrash around inside the cage, his anger overriding the sadness of his loss, which Lucian commented on. Dawn commented, however, that even with all this thrashing around, Weasel wasn't able to free itself yet. Weasel knew this, so it tried to use a sonic boom to get itself free, but this sonic boom didn't do jack shit, so Team Rocket laughed at Weasel's failure. Team Rocket continued to laugh, while Weasel continued to try and break free, to no avail. Dawn felt the need to encourage Weasel, seeing that it was doing the best it could, but maybe it just needed some encouragement. This encouragement managed to energize Weasel as it continued to attack the cage with sonic booms and just regular thrashing, intensifying the force of these attacks until the cage finally broke, and Weasel jumped down to the ground, away from the Meowth balloon, landing on the ground with all of the rubble from the cage, which Ash and the gang and Lucian celebrated. Team Rocket were angry at the fact that Weasel had escaped them, though, so they landed their Meowth balloon down on the ground and prepared to battle Weasel as Weasel prepared to battle them. Fully hyped to battle now, as Jesse and James sent out Dustox and Carnivine respectively, although, as usual, Jesse and Meowth were freaked out when Carnivine ate James, although James ended up breaking free. While Weasel was getting ready to battle, Dawn was as well, but Lucian told Dawn to stop for a sec so that he could actually order around Weasel for a bit, thinking that maybe he could get through to Weasel, where Dawn couldn't, since he was an Elite Four member. Dawn acknowledged Lucian was probably right, so she let Lucian command Weasel for the battle that would take place between Carnivine and Dustox. So, Dustox started off the battle by going for a tackle, and Carnivine joined it, going for a bite, extremely fast. Dawn suggested to Lucian that he have Weasel dodge, because she couldn't help but get her input in, but Lucian shocked everyone by going for something different, a water gun, which, much to everyone's surprise, who were also surprised that Weasel was even obeying Lucian, Weasel went for this water gun, and it knocked back both Carnivine and Dustox. Next, Dustox and Carnivine went for a dual attack, Dustox going for Psybeam, and Carnivine going for Bullet Seed, but Weasel actually dodged this time, and then it used a sonic boom straight towards Carnivine, which was able to knock it out after the smoke from the explosion that was caused by the Psybeam and Bullet Seed that had collided because of Weasel dodging it had faded. And anyways, the important thing was that Carnivine was now down, so the battle was just Dustox versus Weasel, and even that didn't last too long, because Lucian then had Weasel use an Aqua Jet to knock Dustox back and officially knock it out, leading Ash and the gang, Lucian and Weasel to celebrate, and Lucian informs Dawn that Weasel had its own unique battle style that Dawn had to adapt to. It had its own way of battling, and Dawn would have to accept that. Weasel confirmed this, so Dawn had her sights set on mastering whatever Weasel's battle strategy was. Next, Lucian gives one final order to Weasel, telling it to use a water gun directly on Team Rocket, which sends all of them, including Wobbuffet and Mime Jr., and the Meowth balloon itself, blasting off, with Wobbuffet being blasted off last. Dawn goes up to Weasel and congratulates it, but Weasel was more interested in having a rematch with Lucian, as it marched up to him and requested another battle. Lucian accepted, but only under the condition that Dawn would battle with Weasel and attempt to adapt to its unique battle style. Dawn agreed to this, so as the sun started to set, Dawn and Weasel got on one side of the backyard of the Pokemon Center, and Lucian got on the other, while Ash and Brock once again watched the battle, and Lucian sent out his Bronzong again. And the battle began with Bronzong using a Gyro Ball, but this time Weasel obeyed Dawn's request to dodge the attack and then use an Aqua Jet, impressing Ash and Brock that Weasel actually listened to Dawn now. But unfortunately, Bronzong still was able to use Iron Defense to completely negate the Aqua Jet. Bronzong did at least start spinning because of the force of the Aqua Jet, though, so Lucian knew that Dawn and Weasel were getting somewhere. Anyways, Weasel then fired off a water gun next as it jumped into the air for a more powerful attack, but again, Bronzong just used Iron Defense to stop the water gun. Suddenly, the battle came to an abrupt end as Lucian technically forfeited, though that didn't mean Dawn was better than Lucian or anything, obviously, but Lucian decided to forfeit by recalling Bronzong, saying that he had done what he needed to do in the battle. Weasel had started to respect Dawn, and that was evident due to how efficiently Dawn and Weasel worked together during that battle, and Lucian expressed his confidence that Dawn and Weasel's bond would continue to improve, and leaves as he states his wishes to eventually reunite with Dawn and Weasel and see how their bond had evolved the next time he sees them. Before Lucian walks away, Ash states that he was very much looking forward to hopefully battling Lucian himself in the future, but Lucian tells him that time would tell if the two of them would face off. Ash realizes that he probably wouldn't even do good against Lucian right now, and decides that he should, while still look forward to his hopefully eventual battle with Lucian, he should shift his focus to a goal that was more within reach, right for him right now, his second Sinnoh Gym badge in Eterna City. The episode ends with Dawn thanking Lucian for everything as he officially leaves, and Ash and Brock congratulate Dawn and Weasel on forging a bond, as they already seemed a lot closer, and Dawn and Brock wish Ash luck in his upcoming gym battle, which Ash was very excited for, along with Pikachu.